on this episode of Edge of the Web.
Just imagine what we could do as an industry if we could evolve to focus on higher level strategy and allow basic models, machine learning models, to take over some of that foundational stuff.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Here and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, alongside Tom Broadbeck, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
Well, welcome back to The Edge. Again, we're always broadcasting from Edge Media Studios in downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. Thanks for joining us on the live stream, and thanks for joining us on iTunes and all the podcast aggregators channels that we have out there. We certainly appreciate your fandom there, and we certainly appreciate give us some feedback on how we're doing in the show here. We're always talking to the latest influencers and marketing aficionados around the planet when it comes down to digital marketing. And we certainly appreciate your contribution as a listener base to be able to let us know who we should be talking to next. Check out all the recent shows over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. We're actually sponsored by Site Strategics, our title company, as well as a pioneer in the agile marketing space. So if you're interested in what we do in that space, go over to sitestrategics.com. Check us out. You can learn a little bit more about agile marketing methodology. And if you'd like to have a conversation about how we could possibly do that with your team or with your firm, just give us a shout. Be happy to have a free hour consultation and talk about your digital online success. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. I'm the owner of Site Strategics and founder of Edge Media Studios. We talk about this regularly, but we always want to ring that bell of why we do what we do. We do this for a couple of reasons. One, most importantly, is to be able to educate the digital marketing ecosystem that's out there, to let people know about the latest trends, best techniques in digital marketing when it comes down to social media, comes down to search engine optimization, conversion rate optimization, just to name a few concepts. But on top of it all, we actually use this a bit selfishly because this is our R&D. We're constantly learning from great talent around the world of how to do digital marketing the right way. And with that, this is what we've been doing for the last 8 years. In the studio, in the production booth, actually, today, we got Tom Broadbeck. He's on audio, not video today. Tom, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. We got a camera down, so we can't actually show you, but you know what?
That's right.
You're over there.
Yep. I'm good.
A little bit of technical difficulty, but hey, that's
what happens.
Isn't that what happens whenever you're running a studio?
The show must go on.
The show must go on, and we want to go on with a leading SEO scientist who's laying in wait here. We got Britney Muller. How you doing, ma'am?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We're excited to have you on board, and we're excited to talk about machine learning and start ginning up some conspiracy theories.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, we certainly want to unpack our interview with you, but always, each and every show, we light up some more the recent news of the week. So, you ready to deep dive into some digital marketing news?
Let's do it.
All right, roll that beautiful bean footage.
I'm going to do what God put Ron Burgundy on this earth to do. Have salon-quality hair and read the news.
This week's trending topics.
No, I don't think I've got salon quality hair, Tom. I mean, do I? Yeah, everybody puts product. You just get your hair trimmed down to the nub, but I mean, yeah, all right. I got a little bit of product in there, but it's not shiny at all. Anyway, that's some great hair over there, Brittany.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got a good studio over there. Is that over at Moz?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Over in Seattle. Certainly appreciate you joining us on the show. And we've been fans from afar regarding SEO and everything that you're doing out there in not only at Moz, but also just lighting up education regarding to the more recent changes in machine learning. But SEO as a whole, we need those evangelists out there. So we certainly appreciate you joining us today.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on. This is going to be a blast.
Yep.
I'm so excited.
So let's talk about our first article from Roger Monti, Search Engine Journal. Ahrefs announces plan for a new search engine. Yes, indeed, a brand new search engine. This was some interesting news, and a lot of people contributing into what this could mean, and a lot of our own guests on the show here over the recent years. So here's the deal. Ahrefs announces the plan for the new search engine. Okay, so Dmitry Gerasimenko, right? Close enough?
Close enough. Gerasimenko, I think.
Gerasimenko, he announced a plan to create a search engine that supports content creators and protects users' privacy. Dmitry laid out his proposal for a more free and open web, one that rewards content creators directly from search revenue with a 90-10 split in favor of the publisher. So he's got a couple goals here. Goal one, he believes Google is hoarding site visitors. Now, we have never said that on our show whatsoever.
Never.
He tweeted that Google is increasingly keeping site visitors to itself, resulting in less traffic to content creators. They're constantly showing scraped content and search result pages more and more, so that you don't even need to visit a website. And I think we said that once or two times here ourselves. Another point, he seeks to pry the web from privatized access and controls. The gatekeepers to web content, such as Google and Facebook, exercise control over what kind of content is allowed to reach people. Along with that, the third point is he believes Google's model is unfair. Dmitry noted that Google's business model is unfair to content creators by sharing search revenue. Sites like Wikipedia wouldn't have to go begging for money. And the fourth point, he states that a search engine should encourage publishers and innovation. He stated that a search engine's job is of imposing structure to the chaos of the web should be one that encourages the growth of quality content, that like a plant to support, and be able to have a vine that holds up. Well, wow, that's an interesting analogy. I'm just going to leave it there with that one. All right, so 4 points of why he wants to build a new search engine. I'm going to tee it up to Brittany because a lot of your own cohorts at the Moz side of things chimed in on this real quick. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give him kudos to the why behind building something like this. It would be incredible if something like this could exist. Mm-hmm. However, I like to echo the thoughts in that article on the flip side, as far as, has this really taken into account the users, right? If you're providing incentives for the publishers, it could get spammy fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. And what's the incentive for the users, right? That, in my opinion, should come first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. John Henshaw jumped in there very quickly and literally was saying that very close to what you're saying is that it's relevant for the producers of content, but where's the advocacy for the users in that space, right?
Right.
There's a number of some top line players in our industry that contributed. Ryan Jones also jumped in there. This sounds like an engine focused on websites, not users. So, I mean, I can see the argument, because we are pretty up in arms. AMP came out, all the different properties that Google has, the local, the map, the Google guaranteed, obviously the ad space, everything pushing down organics, the algorithm changes, shoving a lot of us out of the way. But at the end of the day, it is their sandbox, right?
Exactly.
Tom, what are your thoughts about a brand new search engine from Ahrefs?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you guys. I mean, it'll take a lot to change people's user habits, and I don't think Ahrefs is coming out with a mobile device that could change a lot of those user habits, and Google owns a lot of the market share, so I'll be mildly less successful than DuckDuckGo.
Right.
It might be for SEOs only type of search engine, but I don't know. Yeah.
Are we in the days of it's a foregone conclusion that the dominating factor is Google and it's going to be around forever? I mean, I hate to be that prophetic, but I mean the barrier of entry for a brand new search engine is so high, right? I mean, it's going to be niche. I mean, we've been talking about the niche break off into these smaller communities of content and social, what have you. But Are we in the days of Google just never going away?
I mean, I think you have to consider Google has such a strong foothold in the Internet of Things,
Yeah.
right? They're
Oh, yeah.
already integrating themselves into all these different devices, into all these different basically areas of our life. Like, how do you compete with that starting now? I just think that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't catch up. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to have, there's a constant vigil for fairness as Google makes their algorithm changes and they shift content in front of their users, right? So it's going to be more of a diplomatic play to talk to Google as opposed to try to challenge in the marketplace. Oh my,
Right.
that's a depressing topic right there. All right. Hey, check it out. Talking about crossover of what Google's doing from Search Engine Land from Greg Sterling. We always appreciate his content. Google Guarantee local listings are now appearing in Google Home results. Speaking of the devil, Brittany, the Google Guarantee has been associated with the local services ads, which you may or may not know of, users or listeners, but it's certainly a powerful tool. But the two programs have been technically distinct. So you got Google Home and the Google Assistant environment, right? But you also have this entire local services where you can get the Google Guarantee badge. It's truly distinct from the local services. And this is what I want to say. The badge is different than the local services ad environment, right? So you can actually go through a process with Google to get that Google Guarantee badge. And what we're seeing, what they're talking about here is that badge and that authentication, that endorsement is making its way into Google Home results. Now, I think they're picking a particular element out of the local services, and because local services is an ad campaign, that there's going to be some monetization around that down the road. But this is what you're talking about, is that the Internet of Things, Google Home, Brittany, is in the space, and now they're crossing the streams from a paid environment on desktop into Google Home, where there's only going to be one or two recommended results by Google, right?
Right. I think there was a lot of confusion about that article, though. They went back and revised some of what they had said previously. So to be clear, they're not providing paid local businesses in voiced results,
Correct.
but they are giving that guarantee or Google Guarantee stamp when they send it to your phone or they email it to you.
Right, right. And that Google Guarantee is backed up by Pinkerton, and that's the relationship that Google has for doing background checks on local service providers like HVAC, for example. And they go through background checks of all the installers that are out in the field, background checks of the owner, as well as the history of the organization. And that creates the badge. It's a whole different pocket of tool sets to be able to advertise that inside of the local services ads. So you
Oh, wow.
you earn that by that background check, and that's what Google's actually picking up and putting into Google Home.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that was an actual background check.
Oh my
for
gosh,
that.
yes. In fact, I've got direct knowledge. I've just been working on one of those for our clients, and it was an arduous process, especially whenever you've got some individuals that don't want to have their background checked.
Right.
It
Oh
holds
my
up
gosh.
everything. So this guarantee factor is a valuable gem out there that is truly improving click-through traffic, or click-through rates, I should say. And it's also right on top of, from a desktop standpoint, it's right on top of the ad side of things, is right on top of the ad, the traditional search ads.
Yeah.
So there's some real estate there, some value there, and they're kind of picking a choice piece out of that to basically endorse listings on the Google Home side of things.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this ties into the Google Home, especially like the Google Home Hub.
Right.
I assume there's going to be another version of that Google Home with the screen on it as well. So, I mean, the way this read to me is with your Google Home Hub, you ask for a plumber, and you can just click on it right there, straight from the Google Home Hub. It'll do direct calls straight from the Google Home to set up an appointment for you.
Yeah, and that's all the local property. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that Google's getting in the way of conversion, or I'm sure they would say they're helping their customers connect better to the companies, because that lead gen factor that we've been looking at on the desktop and mobile side, the click to call and the click to get a lead. I mean, that's where Google's going to put their real estate again, to be able to hold on to those the form leads and inquiries. So it's good for the consumer, but boy, that's more and more real estate that's being taken away from us. I don't know. There's pros and cons to everything. I'm just happy I was able to get our final background check for our client, because that was a pain in the ass.
How long did that take?
Well, there were some starts and stops with the previous vendor that was working with them. So it took about, when all things considered, it took about 2 months to actually get through the entire process.
Okay.
Which is also something interesting in its own right. It's not a flick of the switch.
Right.
And Pinkerton literally drags their heels. I think deliberately. I don't know why. All right, but we're going to deliberately go to this next article here from Search Engine Land from Barry Schwartz. Google's de-indexing issue still not fully resolved, but Google is working on it. Tom, what's the de-indexing issue and what happened?
So we're not sure what happened, but essentially what's happened is Google accidentally de-indexed sites from appearing at all in searches. It was just a mistake that happened. They thought it was corrected Saturday. Turns out even as of this morning, it's Tuesday, 3:15 Eastern that we're recording this, it's still not completely resolved, although some websites are starting to pop back into the listing. So they're still working on it. I checked right before we went on air. It still hasn't been the case that it's been solved, but kind of interesting, just a random bug. You said
That's a pretty.
it's a heavy bug.
Heavy bug there. That's a giant bug. And on top of that, I mean, seeing that they had a core algorithm change back on the 17th of March.
Yeah,
right.
Mid-March.
I'm sure that a number of individuals are freaking out because it could very well be another shoe that fell. But Google says it was an error. What do you know about this de-indexing, Brittany?
So I actually have some inside info for
Okay.
you guys here.
Lay it on us.
So Dr. Pete has hooked me up with some data about this whole issue. And he had said that there was a drop in stable rankings on Friday, April 7th. There was a recovery Saturday, and then another drop on Sunday. He says it seems relatively normal now, but the drop was about 4%. It's noticeable, but not a catastrophe. He has a blog post coming out Thursday, and he allowed me to print off some graphs for you guys. I know this is so not Web 2.0, but here's like the really basic, like, can you see this?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay.
So that's the dip,
the
right?
drop.
Okay.
But then he zoomed it in for me, so you can see it's still not totally recovered.
Okay,
So
got
this
it.
is today.
This is page 1.
This is page 1.
Got it.
Right. Yeah.
Huh. No,
It's not here, folks.
so we got page 1 data, right? But the indexing certainly applies to much more than the page 1 rankings. So I mean,
But that was checking the indexation of those page 1.
got it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've seen this bug before because I know Search Engine Land accidentally got de-indexed by Google a couple months ago.
Yep.
So I don't know what this bug is.
It seems like more like a hammer than a bug.
Yeah.
I mean, they're testing out a brand new weapon of mass destruction that they're just kind of letting out of the bag too quickly. I don't know. Pretty darn scary if you ask me. But I mean, we've seen de-indexing happen before. But I mean, back in the day, it was a DMCA issue or something like that that would get you yanked, as well as the link spam and everything from Penguin. But my God. Okay, well, we'll just hold on to everything, and if you know, for everybody who's listening, check out your own indexes and just watch carefully. I'm sure everything's going to snap back into shape, right? All right, so there's the news. If you want to snap back into shape each and every week, we send over to you our Edge of the Web newsletter, completely free of charge. We're talking about everything that we talk about on the show, who we're talking to, who we did talk to, the news of the week, and much more. So if you want to sign up, just go over to the website right there. You can go and put your email in, and we'll use it for nothing but sending over digital nuggets of gold. And if you want to text to the number 22828, the word Edge Talk, you can sign up there right from your smartphone. Just don't do it while you're driving, please. There's the public service announcement right there. So follow all the featured trending topics over at edgeofthewebradio.com. So with all that aside, let's deep dive with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Britney Muller, Senior SEO Scientist at Moz.
All right. So for our audience who are made up primarily of digital marketers and a good, solid core of SEOs, if you don't know Brittney, then shame on you because she's doing a bang-up job regularly inside of the SEO circles and has been for a long time. We'll introduce you, and then we'll take it away from there. Brittney is a Senior SEO Scientist, the Senior SEO Scientist over at Moz, where she is helping in research on SEO concepts, creating educational content, helping to educate people about SEO, which is constantly a vigil, internally as well as at conferences around the world, and communicating SEO trends and desires to the product teams over at Moz. How long have you been with Moz, Brittney?
I've been with Moz for about 2.5 years.
Very cool. Very cool. And you certainly have seen a number of changes over at Moz and the culture shifts there. It's a huge guild of top-level professionals, and we've been huge fans of Moz for a long time in our SEO history. Our SEO backstory is there. But your backstory is really, really important to showcase. So tell us how you got into digital marketing and how you got into SEO.
Kind of a weird story. So I couldn't find a job after college and decided to move out to Breckenridge, Colorado to pursue my dream of being a snowboard bum, and successfully did that for a season and just got really bored waiting tables and was really active on Twitter. And I connected with a local realtor who saw that I had a journalism degree and wanted me to write local listings. And so when I started doing that, he introduced me to SEO and basic HTML and CSS. And from there, I just kind of went crazy. I thought it was so insane that you could figure out how many searches a month are being done for any given thing. And so from there, I started building up these test sites to compete with major brands. And one of my favorite claim to fames as I'm learning this stuff is the day of Burton US Open, when they first came to Vail, I ranked number 1 for Burton US Open above Burton.com because I had prepared months and months and months in advance. I had created all this unique content.
Yep.
I'd been working on these backlinks. So that kind of got my foot in the door in the industry. And then Rich Stats of Secret Stash Media saw what I was doing. It was like, you can do this stuff and get paid for it, right? Like, why don't you come work with me over in Vail and we can do this, as a career. And so he taught me so much. And then after a year, I branched off and started Pride Marketing, where we did strategic medical marketing for private practices in Denver.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. So you went vertical there for a bit.
Yes. Yeah, which was fun. And then after about 5 years of doing that, was pretty burnt out, had tried a couple of things to scale, and those didn't work. And I made sure that all my employees had employment elsewhere, and then was approached by Moz. So was excited to apply and go through that whole process. And here I am.
There you are.
I know.
And you're one of the premier spokespeople in the Moz community, and you're certainly lighting up the conferences. So where do you speak right now, or have you spoken over the last year?
Yeah, so I have been so honored to speak on stages like Search Love, MozCon, Learn Inbound, different international ones, even like Retail Global in Australia, some local events, but yeah, kind of covering all sorts of stuff there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
search leads, crazy.
so where are you going to be speaking here in the future in the next couple of months?
Yeah, so in the next couple of months, I will be at Search Leads in June, and then MozCon and CTA Conf by Unbounce.
Very cool.
Yeah, really looking forward to those.
Always wanted to go up to CTA Conf.
Oh, you should.
Yeah. Got to talk to Yuri again and see if we can get out there and do a little bit of broadcasting. Hey, we got you on board because, well, first and foremost, we love talking to evangelists such as yourself. But there's a particular topic that's you're pursuing right now, and that's machine learning.
Yeah.
So we've had a string of shows here recently regarding machine learning, and I want to give our audience a little bit more depth of knowledge about what's happening here, or what it means to our marketing. So can you tell us a little bit about machine learning, what it means, and why it's so important to SEOs to learn?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Really, really good questions. So essentially, what machine learning does is it takes a huge amount of input training data and can output a model that automates things for you. So you can get it to write meta descriptions for your pages. You can get it to help optimize page titles. You can get it to identify major SEO issues, or to use different models of groupings, like what J.R. Oakes talked about on your recent podcast with him, where he's basically grouping keyword topics. So you're able to distill a huge amount of data into very easy to consume insights. And it's a beautiful thing when you think about it being applied to the world of SEO, because for as long as I've been involved in SEO, which has been around 10 years now, it's always been around, the same mundane, low level, title tags, meta descriptions, these things. Just imagine what we could do as an industry if we could evolve to focus on higher level strategy and allow basic models, machine learning models, to take over some of that foundational stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's been the bane of every SEO's existence, is having to rewrite the title tags or having to rewrite the meta content. I mean, we talk about putting chess pieces on the board regularly. This is the strategy, but when it gets down to it, there's a lot of, it's not difficult work. It's just time-consuming work to just go through each and every one of those pages, and let alone have the hypothesis of, okay, if we're tracking this, we're going to change up our what do you call it, their kind of a schema of how we're, not schema in that way, but an actual organization of your titles, and then you're going to change collectively the organization titles to be able to improve CTR. All the while, you have to measure everything, and you have to have that data feeding back into the system, right?
Exactly.
So machine learning, we have a new horizon here where we can plug our own sites into machine learning algorithms to be able to set the test and be able to see what's happening and glean a heck of a lot more insight than we as marketers would ever be able to do on our own, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have to think about it, like there's a lot of things machine learning won't be so great for. And the way to identify those opportunities is to consider how much training data you have to feed it. So if you don't have much input or much data to do a thing that you want to do, you're going to have to find resources elsewhere or maybe pivot. But that's where most of data cleaning, data munging comes into play. Is that's 99% of this data science stuff, and machine learning is having clean, high quality training data. Without that, you're not going to get a good output. You're not going to get a good result.
So garbage in, garbage out, basically.
Exactly. And that's why the whole ethics thing, at Google is kind of spinning out of control now too, because if you have biased data or slanted data that you're putting into a model, it's obviously going to come out that way. So we, as this new space, you have to be so careful about what you're building and how you're building it.
That topic right there, let's unpack that a little bit more for our listeners who are not aware of that, is that Google has been on a path for normalizing data, or I should say creating neutral, unbiased type of data and be able to learn from that. But by the very definition of removing bias from content, you're actually removing that content from the users that actually consume that content as well, based on regional bias. I mean, is there a risk of normalizing it so much and what we call it, homogenizing content, that you're losing connection to regional patterns of search?
Not in the ethical ways that.
Oh, sure.
Right, but as far as. Yeah.
I'm talking colloquialism. I can't even remember that word.
Words are hard.
Words, people, words. But the effort of actually deregionalizing content could actually separate you from your users, so to speak.
And I don't think you would want to deregionalize content by any means or search data by any means. But if you're, like for example, TSA has a Kaggle competition right now. Kaggle is the #1 largest data science competition website. And there's a competition that they have on there for $1.5 million to build a model that identifies threats. And you can imagine that this training data isn't evenly spread across demographics, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you have to consider things like that. But yeah, that's more so what I was talking about as far as.
No, I get it. I get it completely. So you've got to be able to have clean lines to be able to measure. What are some of the other problems with machine learning?
Oh boy. Computational power has gotten better. It was interesting. I was just at an AI conference here in Seattle a couple months ago, and they were saying how, there's these 3 primary sectors of machine learning that makes it possible. And the biggest bottleneck currently is people, is that there's not enough people familiar and well-versed in machine learning to execute on building effective models. And you also have to consider, you also need individuals with domain knowledge, right? That's where JR was talking about the medical implications have been incredible, but those have also happened with domain knowledge experts in the field of, image recognition for, let's say, cancer detection.
Right.
But what's most exciting about this part of the bottleneck is that Google is making it so much easier for the average person to do this stuff. Like, I am not a formally trained developer. I never thought in my wildest dreams I would be creating models to, output my tweets for me or and you wouldn't believe what you can do if you know where to look. And so one of my favorite resources is Google Code Labs. And you filter it by TensorFlow, and you can walk through step by step a machine learning process. And I don't know about you or your listeners, but I'm sort of a monkey learner. Like, I need to
see it.
Yeah, I have to. If I can see someone do it, I get really jazzed up and excited, and I can do that too, right? So I learn a lot from like YouTube videos. Surprisingly, there's tons of great resources on YouTube. But same with these different Google tools that we can link to maybe.
There's a whole nother, there's a new, I don't want to say cobble industry because it kind of puts a diminishing factor on it, but there is a new level of language that we're starting to find ourselves in. And it's that modeling language, that building of, it's the Raspberry Pi of things, is that you can literally start building this in the cloud space, because now we have cloud CPU, right? And you can start modeling this, and no electrons get harmed in the effort. But it's no longer, there's no longer a barrier of entry into understanding these type of data components, where it used to be if you'd only get to play with it if you were a developer, right? Because we all liked our SQL join statements, right, back in the day.
Yes.
And that was always fun to be able to say, oh, wow, this is amazing what you can do. But now we're in a space where this is all kind of bridging that gap and translating it for us.
Exactly. And, to play off of what JR had said about, he mentioned Jupyter Notebooks. Google came out with their own version, and it's called Colab Notebooks. It does the exact same thing, and you get free GPU. So computationally, it can go way faster. And you can share it more accessibly with teams and with other people, which is fascinating. So it's been really interesting and wild to see Google follow along the footsteps in providing this stuff, open source. But yeah, it's back when I got into the TensorFlow stuff. For example, a basic model was hundreds of lines of code, and now it's just a handful. It can be under 10. So from that perspective, they are working really hard to make it more accessible. And I just hope that we can sort of plant the seed of curiosity and, you and like your listeners, and you wouldn't believe what cool things you can do with it. It's just really fun.
You start looking at the Bitcoin evolution of how how the communities took over and started to develop this non-nationalized currency, right? And being able to have open source at the backbone of this, you're really looking at, I hate to get weirdly philosophical, but you're getting into a space where there is new conversations happening that are non-regional, non-biased. They're in this new machine realm, and there's now easily translatable objects to be able to work with. And you're going to have a community that's going to pour into that. So you're going to have different type of templates, different type of functional macros to for lack of a better description, where even those are now going to be building blocks of how to really train machine learning, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's exciting. It's a brand new horizon for again, not to get completely prophetic here, but for us as a human society to be able to start training the tools better and actually not have to do the grunt work, but actually get into much more cerebral mechanic side of things.
Exactly.
I'm getting excited. All right.
I know, it's so fun. It was funny, like this morning thinking about this podcast, I was thinking about all that stuff and how exciting it is and how there's already incredible people in our field doing the most mind-blowing things. Like I would like to make, a part-time job of just following Paul Shapiro and J.R. Oaks around and like translating some of the things they say, because I feel like I need to scream it to people for them to really get it, or like give them a little shake. Like Paul was recently at a conference, traffic think tank, and he was talking about how a couple years ago he created a system to create automatic 301 redirects to relevant pages. And it's just like think about that.
Yep.
That is insane. He created a crawler to go back to archive.org, find all of your old URLs that currently 404, put it into this model that detects a relevant current 200, page that's alive.
Right.
And then talks directly to your htaccess file to do this automatically. This stuff is crazy. And I feel like we have to tune into them a little bit better because they've been doing some of this stuff for years and SEOs are just finding out about it now.
Yeah.
It's so exciting and really fun to think about.
Yeah. We had Paul on the show a couple of years back. So 4 or 5 years back. And it was amazing. I mean, we were in awe. I mean, he just kind of laid it all. I mean, it was literally, we were aghast and just listening to what he was saying there. I got to go back to that show. I remember that conversation. We were all just kind of looking at each other going, my God.
Yeah.
It's like a fount of geekdom right here. No offense whatsoever, Paul. It's amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, to that point, there is going to be this new frontier of translation, of communication, and sharing of methods that, once the realm of stabilizing how you can use it, right, it gets embraced, because you can hypothesize all the way, but if you don't have the technology plugged into your system and the training tools that are there, but also be able to receive that data, right?
Yes.
And be able to use that data. And once that's in place, then Katie barred the door. We're going to go hog wild. Boy, the euphemisms that I just used there. My Texas roots are showing. I mean, it's bad. All right, so there are two types of machine learning that you've discussed here recently. One is supervised, the other unsupervised. What are those, and how do they differ in results?
Yeah, great question. So, those are the two primary results. There's also things like semi-supervised, but for the most part, it's divided into those two categories. Supervised is labeled training input. So that is, for example, let's say you have, SERP results and the URLs for this one keyword that you want to optimize a title tag for that maybe it could evaluate. That's not a great example, but you could basically put in labeled training data. Like, for example, my tweets that I did recently, I threw in a bunch of tweets and said, this is a tweet, this is a tweet, this is a tweet. I want you to use this model to produce something new. That's known as a label or a basically supervised model. Unsupervised is, let's say you have geographical data and you want to lump things together. So with unsupervised, it's really exciting because you can just throw tons and tons of data at a model that's unlabeled and kind of chaotic,
Mm-hmm.
and allow different grouping models to take over and cluster things for you. So that's where things like K nearest neighbor come in, all sorts of different clustering
That's
stuff.
where the old mantra of the brain trust of getting a bunch of people in the room and all of a sudden something else that was not intended starts to come out of that. You have the ability to start reading these organic clusters of relationships as opposed to have it more fenced in for a specific goal, right?
Exactly. And the whole concept here is to allow the models to take over and to identify patterns that we as humans could never recognize, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible what things these models will come up with and output. It's hysterical. But yeah, if you give it enough quality data, it should be able to identify different patterns depending on what you're going to do. And then from there, you leverage it to do whatever it is that you want to do.
I dig it.
Yeah.
So getting it back to some practicality for the SEOs in the audience,
Yeah.
right? One of the, we know the elements that help enhance click-through traffic, click-through rates, I should say. And we know in the SERPs, we got the titles, we've got our meta content. How can we use machine learning to help us rewrite our meta content to improve a click-through rate? Let's get some practical science here.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's a number of ways you could do this. One of which is allowing a model to basically parse the current page one meta descriptions and come up with, a competing meta description. I haven't seen that to do so well as in opposed to just taking your on-page text, running it through a summarizer model, and limiting it to the meta description length has proved to be incredibly useful for, I know, a couple hundred Moz URLs that I've been playing around with it on. But there's different summarizer models, and there's tons of different ways you can do this. And to your point, the toughest part is connecting this into a workable solution, right? And that's something that I talk with JR all the time about, because he has that technical mindset of, oh, here's what it takes to plug this into a Google sheet and allow you just to put in the URL, and on the right column, you could see the meta description. Or someone might come up with a WordPress plugin to connect these different fields.
Right.
Things like that are moving forward. They're not moving forward as fast as I wish that they were, because it is just tough right now. But I think if you are really curious and driven to find these solutions, we have already been putting things out there for you to run with and to try these things with. JR is super approachable. So is Hamlet Batista, and we're all more than welcome to help people try to make these things happen on their live sites.
No, there's an active community of development that want to. They all actually want to test everything out. I mean, if you want to step up and be a guinea pig, I mean, there's ample opportunity out there. I mean, there's these training elements that still have to exist when you're writing a meta description, right? You got to fence it in. You have to have certain objectives that you put in place for that, for any piece of content, any area in which you're trying to affect a change. You still have to fence it in with grammar, for example, right? With different baseline structure of what what the game rules are within that particular element, right?
Right. And I don't think we're anywhere near the level of trusting these models to go crazy on your primary pages. I think you still own that, right? And you protect those, and you do that by hand. But when you're looking at something like Moz's Q&A forum that has, tens of thousands of pages for these very unique sort of, random long tail questions, this works really great. And it's also, you have to consider it's better than nothing, right? Because a lot of people will just leave them blank when you have a huge website.
Sure.
can't feasibly write meta descriptions for every single one. So if these can get you part of the way there, all the more power to you.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that don't wait until things are structured in such a finessed way. These summarizer models like you're talking about, I mean, they're built to logically pair content together. You're not just going to have a random shuffling of terms based on a preset of you don't want to go back into the dark days of keyword density, right? The goal here is to make a logical summary of content, and these tools are already there for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's a cost to play in this space of machine learning, right? It's not free. We can't just pluck it off the tree. You've got GPU, you've got CPU, and you've got TPU, right?
Yeah.
Now, lay it on us. What are these differences, and how does this play into machine learning?
Oh God. So I'm not super well versed in
That's all right. It's all right.
technical aspects of it, but I know that GPU is significantly more powerful than CPU, and TPU is significantly more powerful than GPU. And TPU is basically created by Google to power up TensorFlow models.
Right.
So it's a specific hardware that allows you to computationally run these a lot faster, which is super exciting. But yeah, I mean, you have to pay to play in some aspects. In other aspects, if you're willing to sit on a GPU, like for a lot of my work, I just do on my local computer, and it just takes hours and hours and hours. And during that time, I make sure that I'm not dropping out of the runtime or, impeding on it in any way, because that's a super pain if, something interrupts your training process.
Got it.
But yeah, there's all sorts of ways to do it. But I do think it's more approachable than people think. Like, we're now talking about disposable AI. There are these TPUs that are coming out that are literally going to be a couple dollars that you can put a machine learning model on. And it was demoed recently where it was in the backseat of like a Lyft or an Uber, and it could detect if an object was left behind when a passenger left. And the beautiful thing about things like disposable AI or AI that just lives on a device and it's not communicated back to the server or logged on a server is that there's no privacy issue there, right? It's input in, input out. Like it's not being logged or transferred. It literally lives on a little device. And I think we're going to see more and more trends headed that direction, or what they call the edge. So yeah, models on the edge.
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about it on the edge. How about that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Gratuitous plug. So TPU, Google manufactured this chip, and it's their technology. And I'm out of my league on the vernacular here, but they also have the cloud-based TPU as well that you can also lease and use from Google. And so the difference there from the localized standpoint, right? You've got dedicated machine, dedicated logic, and dedicated resources. You can also tap into much larger power, but so to speak, I'm like referencing Google to God. That's not the case, no. But it's a larger power of processing, and TPU itself. I mean, at that point in time, you are going to be relinquishing a little bit of that privacy, right? For the trade out of speed and logic models.
Absolutely.
Well, it's the coin of the realm, and you better believe that Google's going to learn from all of these.
Exactly.
Yep.
They do anyways. Like in our CAPTCHAs for the click the signs in this picture. 50% of those photos they know where the signs are, and 50% they don't, and they're asking us to train it. So we are literally training models every day, and we have no idea. And I do often think about that when I see all these new products being put out that I get super excited about, like Colab, right? And these different data sets that they'll make public. It's like, well, crap, they're watching and learning from all of us as well.
And we wondered what those were all about. Absolutely. And we're allowing it. We're training it because we want it to make our lives more convenient. Yes. So there's an entire industry to tee it up. So, I mean, if you think about it back in the day, and when Google was first opening up the Bayesian logics, right? Being able to do predictive analysis on what you're interacting with to be able to give you your next set of SERPs that are going to be more relatable to your decision making. This is where we are. It's learning from each and every private citizen that's on Google, and they have these larger clouds of constructs, these larger concepts that are constantly being trained by the performance, the behavior that we have on Google, right?
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So in comes Skynet, right?
I don't think so. And that's where I think it's so funny because this is by no means going to take over or do anything wild. It is literally programming and statistics living on servers. These things aren't making their own decisions or, turning things on. It's not like a crazy thing at this current level. I don't know.
She qualified that.
I will qualify it, but I think you look at what Elon Musk was doing at OpenAI, and he's currently since left, but OpenAI basically was able to produce, they said, such a well-trained natural language generation model that they wouldn't release it publicly. But I looked at some of the closer information on it, and that data set was still talking about underwater fires, and things that logically don't make sense. And I think you have to think about that. These computers that are trying to learn like humans learn are going to have an impossible time on certain things because we're not writing or speaking about how I am smaller than my house.
Right.
The computer has no idea about these very basic logical things. That's why the Allen Institute is so interesting, because they've been working years and years and years to try to feed that sort of information into this sort of be all end all of general knowledge computing. It's so interesting.
Trying to teach conceptual observation to a computer. Eventually it's going to happen, Brittany, right? I mean, there's going to be
levels for sure.
Right. But what you're saying is we shouldn't be scared in the immediate future.
Yeah.
So the Google Assistant's not going to take over and kill my Apple device just because. So where do we go from here? How do we contribute as developers, as marketers? Because marketers really do have a unique play in the training of machine learning, because marketers are by their very nature trained to observe intent.
Yeah.
And are continually looking at ways to be able to produce value to that consumer as quickly as possible. So the nature of this type of training model that you're talking about, right, that the computers need so badly, where marketers are primed to give that type of data back because of the goal-oriented perspective that they're in, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think marketers in general need to just stay really curious about this stuff and ask stupid questions. That has what has connected me with some of these other individuals is I might come across one model but have no idea how to connect it to something in Google Sheets or my own website, and just asking it, is this Google Search Console data available for me to do this and then this with? There's so many applications we haven't even thought about. And I think you and your listeners are likely the ones that have the next great idea and you don't even realize it. So we need that domain expertise. We need that conversation to be happening and to sort of fuel some of these advancements.
Absolutely. It's still very abstract. I'm sure it's abstract to our listeners. Where are some places in which our listeners can go and find out more, kind of compartmentalize it based on their own skill sets? You certainly talked about Code Labs. Are there any other resources that we can learn about our role in training AI and machine learning, but also get our hands messy and start mucking about with stuff?
Yeah, that's tricky because there's so many online courses now that are selling machine learning courses, data science. Andrew Ng has a really great course. Google has their own data science course. Amazon has made their in-house training open source. One of my favorites is from Harvard that you can find on GitHub, and you just do a search for CS109 Harvard. It's their data science 101 course, but that has incredible videos and slides that really help you wrap your head around this stuff. But truly, you don't get a good grasp of it until you start playing around with it. It's a lot like programming,
Mhm.
right? You can't read a book on programming. You have to break things and try to build something, and
Yep.
you just have to give it a go, and be willing to fail. It's like, just try it. And I think I was listening to some podcast about a data science teacher, and that was the one thing he said he wished these students would be less afraid of, is like, if you haven't tried that command in your terminal or whatnot, like, just give it a try. Like, just go ahead and try to do this or try to break this. And
That's when the light bulbs go off.
I know some of it, like, don't sudo anything. Try to do some stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No.
But I mean, I liking it back to, I've got a 11-year-old boy who's in 6th grade, and he's being trained with robot teaching. He's got some competitive robot groupings. I mean, it's actually a national wide.
That is so cool. Wait, is that Amazon's car?
No. Actually, this is an entire, a nationwide, worldwide actual competition of each year you are assembling a robot with teams, and it's high-end competition, like 6 or 7 teams per school, and they're putting together their own assembly of a robot. Everybody across the nation has the exact same parts.
Oh my God.
And you actually have to take it on a course where this year it has certain grapples, and you're actually remote controlling this thing with a pre-programmed flight plan. So they have to learn their quadrants, they have to learn everything, but they also have to be competitive and pick up certain barrels. They have some hooks that they can hang from different bars and what have you, and it's all scored on a judge's point scale. So they're all collectively across the world competing and learning these key principles. And I tell you what, they're learning it with visual clues, visual software representations. And you got that plus the Raspberry Pi realm where you can program all this stuff. Now with this new level of visual management,
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting all the stuff out of the way and getting them into the pure mode of discovery,
Oh my gosh. I think what's so beautiful about that too is the fact that they're making it so fun and competitive. That is what is going to keep people sticky, right, to this idea of learning and continuing their education in this space. Like, you have to enjoy it. You have to do it with things that make you laugh or that are fun,
You better
and there's
believe it. I
so
mean,
many-
there were some kids walking around in capes because they were that badass.
Of course.
I kid
good
you
for
not. I mean,
them.
they were hitting like 26, 28 points consistently out of a potential, the average hitting around 12. And they were their team was Apex, literally named
Oh my
Apex,
gosh.
and they were just killing it. And I mean, it was just amazing seeing the pride and the competitiveness in such a specialized scientific concept. It just fills you with hope that these are the next programmers, and they're going to talk to us about command line entry. Come on. We got all these tools.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's incredible. I love hearing that.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we certainly enjoy the time today talking with you about machine learning. Something bugs you about machine learning in your industry, or the vernacular of machine learning. What is it?
Everyone calls it AI.
Okay.
Everyone. And it's not.
All right.
It's a subset of AI. And you could argue the fact that we've not reached AI yet due to the Turing test, right?
Yep.
So, just the fact that everyone calls it AI, or will use it, with the wrong vernacular or
Yep.
stuff like that.
I think I actually did that during the show today.
Oh, that's okay. It's literally just become a norm, and I feel like that. Get off my lawn! Like, I'm just the cranky machine learning old lady or something.
That's funny. Well, conversely, Brittany, what excites you about your industry right now?
Oh my gosh, what really excites me pertaining to machine learning is this, idea that we are in a space where we can really improve the lives of others. So there's no reason why you couldn't create new medical models or models for, detecting clean water or all sorts of things that could be done on a really basic level that could save people's lives, right? Like they're already doing that. Machine learning is already saving lives, and the implications to do that are tenfold in the future. In addition to just automating the everyday tasks that maybe we don't like to do.
Absolutely. That's fantastic sentiment. And we certainly want you to evangelize and be a Sherpa for us to climb that machine learning mountain, because there's going to be a bunch of us that are going to be scared of breaking a few things. And, hopefully there's a lot of sandboxes that are going to be created so we can play around with this stuff and really learn how we can use it for our own devices, right? And not just the conceptual nature, but making it a real tactic in our bandolier of digital marketing techniques.
Yeah, and that's something we've been talking about here at Moz is, we have a data science club team, and we have a data science course for anyone internally that wants to take it by our data scientist, Neil. But we would like to provide this stuff to the general SEO, digital marketer public, and see how it goes, and hopefully try to distill it even further to really manageable education content.
Nuggets of machine learning that we can use as practical use. I dig it. Sign me up. All right. Hey, we want to know that fun fact that you gave us in a pre-show. Let our listeners know about that.
That I live on a boat?
Oh, no. Well, yeah, you do live on a boat.
Oh, wait, what's the...
And on top of that, you're living on a boat, and you're telling me not to be worried about AI, right, or Skynet, but you have an escape route right into the sea. Now, I'm getting mixed messages here.
That's my backup plan.
But you hacked your way into Harvard's CS 109 data science class. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, so that was about 5 years ago, and at the time, I'm fairly certain they had no idea that there was a public access point to view these videos. And I would be able to watch the videos as they were streaming it, or an hour right after, I forget. But I followed the entire semester's course and started emailing TAs because I had questions about these homework assignments that I couldn't even turn in. But they would email me back, and it was really lovely. And I don't think they had any idea that I didn't belong in there. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so funny. So funny.
Who the hell am I speaking to?
Yeah, well, you didn't have a harvard.edu email address. What were they they're emailing?
I know. It was from a Gmail account. They were so nice.
Wow. Finally, Brittany, is there anything that we can promote for you on the show today?
Ooh, maybe the new Beginner's Guide to SEO that we published here on Moz. I worked really, really hard the last couple of years making sure that we had a really high quality replacement and update for everyone. The old one had gotten over 10 million views, unique views, which is wild. So I'm hoping that this can, do some of that justice and be a little bit more updated for everyone. Yeah,
you got to crush that. That's going to be awesome. So we're certainly gonna add our few clicks over to the beginners. There's the Beginner's Guide to SEO. You certainly want to jump in there for newbies into SEO. And you've come across this podcast, and we're predominantly an SEO podcast from a focal point. But this is great information, and Moz is always a huge resource. But I think I've gone back to this thing numerous times to seeing how deep it is in the different annals, and it's great to be able to educate your clients as well. By the way,
yeah, that's a great point. That's a really good point.
Well, Brittany, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today, and certainly appreciate your passion inside of machine learning. We want to recommend to our listeners to go track her down at Brittany. That's 1T-N-E-Y Muller, M-U-L-L-E-R. Also can track her down on Instagram as well. We certainly appreciate your time. Any final words for the futurist of a digital marketing machine learning technician? How about that?
Ooh, just stay curious, and play around and don't be afraid to break stuff, and feel free to reach out to myself or any of those that are dabbling in this space on Twitter. We're happy to connect, and we'd love to have more of you in this little niche community we have.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Thank you again for your time today, Brittany, and we'll certainly be lifting you up from afar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
You're more
This
than
was
welcome. More than welcome. Thanks for listening to Edge of the Web Radio. Special thank you to our colleagues here at Site Strategics for putting on a great show again and again, especially our guest, Britney Muller. Make sure to check out all the must-see videos over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Tom, who are we talking to on Thursday?
We got Garrett McGoot. I learned how to say his name. Mergoot.
Mergoot.
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, he's from
Directive Consulting, I think?
Directive
Yeah.
Consulting, that's right. So we're going to have our Thursday open as well with him, and we certainly appreciate anybody jumping into the live stream and asking questions. You didn't do it this time. Come on, guys, jump in. And if you're listening to our podcast, we certainly would appreciate our listeners to contribute into our conversation as well. So always check us out usually Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, and you can chime in right there. Make sure you check out all the must-see stuff over at Edge of the Web. Listen to us on the podcast aggregators, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartMedia, Spotify, all the places. Give us some ratings and reviews because we'd really appreciate that. And that's how we actually optimize in our space on the podcast platform. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you Thursday. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. Bye-bye.